So, Ron, a question for you while we're waiting people to join. I notice on our slide deck, we've got this black belt. Now, I've heard
Great.
you're a fan of the martial arts. Tell me about what you've done in the past with that.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a black belt. I don't even have a tan. My grandson is working on, you know, working his way up, but he's not close to that yet.
Can he take you, Ron?
Um, if in certain yes, in certain circumstances he could. But
Okay.
all right. Well, hey, this is great. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is our webinar, and today's topic is so exciting. It's major gift mastery. And I just think you will be blessed to have this conversation. This is a really important conversation for every ministry we serve. And we want to encourage you today. Um, you know, I know when we say the phrase seven-figure donations, it might feel too audacious to some of you, but I want to promise you that by the end of this session, you're going to see that these gifts are not only possible, but they're reachable when you have the right strategy and the right relationships and the right heart posture with your donors. So today I'm joined by three of Timothy Group's most experienced consultants who have effectively helped organizations secure tens of millions of dollars in major gifts. Let me introduce them briefly. Rich Cummins. Rich has decades of experience guiding organizations through transformational campaigns. Rich, welcome. Good to have you.
Glad to be here, Ron.
And then Chad Sutton is joining us. Chad's a seasoned strategist who has helped countless ministries and institutions unlock major gift potential. Great to have you here, Chad.
Thanks, Ron. Excited for our topic today.
So before we get started, as we get started, I want to do a poll for everyone in the audience. So what's the largest gift amount your organization has received? Is it under 10,000, under 100,000, I'm sorry, 100,000 to 499, 500 to 999, or over $1 million? So just quickly take a moment or two and give us some idea of, give us a snapshot of who's in the room. That's exciting. So we're going to see our answers here in a minute. That's great. So we got 43% of you, $1 million or more. So that's great. So maybe you should give this seminar. That would be great. But we're excited because we all have things to learn and grow when it comes to major gift fundraising. I learn every day something special that I need, and I learn from others. So I hope that this session encourages you as we learn together. So when I think about major gift fundraising, I want to start with the foundational question of who is my seven-figure donor? And I want to challenge your assumptions right away. The $1 million donor is not always the person with the biggest house or the flashiest lifestyle. In fact, many of the most generous people that I've encountered live very modestly. And so it's the hidden donor. And years ago, there was a book called The Millionaire Next Door. And those principles are really, they did a lot of research to figure this out. And so what we know from campaign work is seven-figure donors typically share three kinds of characteristics. First, they have the capacity. So they have the financial ability to make a transformational gift. Second, they have an inclination. So they have a demonstrated pattern of generosity. Often it's their deeply held values. And third, and really the most important that a lot of organizations miss, they have a connection. And you have to have all three of these components to really make a transformational gift happen. Capacity, inclination, and connection. That's your key components. So, Rich, you've worked with a lot of donors across the spectrum. When you think about seven-figure donors, what's the biggest misconception that most ministries have?
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Big assumption, big misconception is that these donors are just going to find you like magically, poof, they're going to know where you're at. They're going to know all about you because your mission is just so compelling and that they're just going to give because of that. Well, that's not how it works. Seven-figure donors are thoughtful and they're strategic people, but they really need to be invited into a mission. They got to see your plan. And they want to know that their gift will actually create a measurable and lasting impact. So you got to be very intentional about identifying them and building genuine, deep relationships long before you ever make the ask, in most cases, actually.
And that's really a great thought. Major donors don't necessarily come to you. They might, they have, it's great, but most of the time you've got to go to them.
Mhm.
But you got to go to them not with your hand out. You got to go with your message, with your heart open, and the framework is what we're trying to talk to you about today. How are you going to how are you going to position yourself as serving and giving them an opportunity to partner with you? So let's go into this concept of how are we going to find these key donors? How do we identify and prospect them? So, Rich, help me think this through together. So, we call this the four circles of prospecting. So, it's a framework we use, and you maybe use other frameworks in your ministry and things, but Rich, help us think through how can I find somebody who might align with our ministry?
Yeah, thanks, Ron. So these circles, oftentimes called concentric circles in fundraising circles, the first part you want to look at is that first inner circle, the inner sanctum, if you will. And these are your board members. These are your closest insiders. They're going to be longtime supporters. People are who already know you. They love your organization. They're folks that actually have capacity for a much larger gift than they may have never been asked for before. I had a conversation yesterday, Ron, about a school. School is looking to do a deep dive with their donors, build relationships, launch a campaign, do all of that. And one point of interest came up as far as who are some of these insiders? Well, have you ever thought about your teachers? One of your teachers might be the spouse of somebody who is very wealthy, and you never even really knew that. So your closest insiders would make up inner circle, and the inner circle is circle number one. Circle number two is your extended network. So these are really friends of friends. They're people that are connected to board members. Could be, if you have a school, it could be your alumni or parent networks, grandparents, others who have an indirect relationship with your mission. These require warm introductions and being very intentional about building bridges. So if you look at the third circle, circle three is your broader community. That's people that care about things and values that you might have. They might share your values, but not know your organization yet. So faith-based organizations, this is often going to include philanthropists that have a heart for things like Christian education or church planting, maybe global missions, or whatever your distinctive mission actually is. And so the final circle there, circle four, this is strategic prospecting. So often I say, Ron, that 25% of your of the pool of people you're trying to get to know and trying to cultivate need to be prospects and specifically strategic prospects. So we're going to use tools for this. We might use wealth screening tools. We could use real estate records, SEC findings. So this is your deep discovery to find out who these people are. And basically, you want to find those people that are aligned with your cause.
That's really great. So I want us to dwell on this just a second. So I want to ask a chat question. I see a lot of activity in the chat section. So thank you for this conversation. But I want to add to the conversation. So which of these four circles represent your biggest untapped opportunity? So just drop in the chat some thoughts about these four circles as to where you think you are in your ministry. At the same time, I want you to be thinking about questions and answers because throughout the session here, we're going to have questions. And if you have something that you think about and you say, I wonder about this, drop it in the Q&A box and we will answer that as well. Yeah, thanks for responding. This is very helpful. Appreciate that so much. Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of great comments here. It's the untapped board members, the longtime donors. In fact, I'm working with a ministry right now, and I found somebody who was a significant donor 5 years ago that kind of dropped off our radar screen, and I've reached out to him, and now I've started a conversation. And so it's just like re-winning a friend is a lot easier than finding a new one. And so I always like to try to, who do we know? How do we know them? How can we get them back into our circle of influence? So, Chad, you've done a lot of work helping organizations figure out how they can network into their database to try to find people. Help us talk about this.
Sure. Thanks, Ron. One of the first things we like to do when we onboard a new client is we do what's called a database deep dive. We're looking for giving history, not just total amounts, but patterns in giving. Who's been giving consistently for 5, 10, 15 years? Who gave a larger gift during a past campaign and then fell off and became lapsed or decreased their giving in some capacity? These are signals. We're also looking for other engagement metrics. Who attends events? Who opens every email we send? Who has a personal relationship with the leadership? When you overlay wealth screening data on top of those behavioral indicators, you start to see your data as a map of potential. And here's a key insight. Some of your best seven-figure prospects might currently be giving much lower at the $10,000 or $25,000 level, or even lower than that. They've never been asked for more. No one recognized their capacity. So it's a bit of a cultivation failure, not a generosity failure. We've got to get in there, know our donors, and make the ask.
Yeah, that's great. It's a critical point. So the idea is look at your database first and even look at people that maybe aren't as engaged now, but could be. That's a great critical point. So, okay. So I think in the chat, people said, all right, I understand I got to get my own database and refine that and mine that. I see that. How do I get to the broader community? How do I get out to other people that may align with us? So, Chad, help us think about expanding our circle.
Yeah, it is part of the circle there, Ron. Thanks. One of the most effective strategy is vision casting with your board. We sit down with board members individually and ask them, who do you know? Who do you know that cares about your mission? Who in your professional network do you know? Who have you not talked to? Who does not know the story of why you're on this board? So who's in your community and who might be drawn to what it is that we're doing here? We're not asking them to make the ask. And a lot of board members, they sort of don't want to give out this information but I've actually handed out pieces of paper and said, write down 10 people from your phone that you've never introduced the ministry to before. So we're asking them to open the door, simply that. Most board members know far more people of capacity than they realize. If we stop and think about it, we're like, oh yeah, I've never talked to Billy, I've never talked to Sally about what I'm doing here. It's our job to help them connect those dots. So we also look at community indicators. Who's making significant gifts? This is where a wealth screening can help you see somebody on your donor list that has made gifts to other organizations, maybe much larger gifts. It'll even tell you insights like political affiliation and all of that. So if they've given to other organizations with similar mission, that's a great thing to know. Who's involved in the community foundations or donor advised funds? These are people who have already demonstrated a posture of generosity. So our job becomes to show them why your mission deserves their attention.
I think that's really great. So the identification phase is really just about doing your homework, doing it thoroughly, prayerfully. Ask the Lord to identify someone for you. I mean, I do this all the time. Lord, open my eyes, help me see. And it might be a Facebook post. I think, oh, what about that? Or it might be somebody I see on my phone. I didn't think about that person. It's just one of these things about listening to the Spirit. So you're building a prospect pipeline, and that pipeline has to be filled with people that have capacity, inclination, and connection, and all those things have the possibility to converge. So we need to talk about identification. Now we need to switch and move to cultivation. That step is so important. So I like to think about this that cultivation, if identification is science, cultivation is the art. We always talk about the art and science of fundraising. That's the two different aspects of it. So it requires patience, sensitivity, attentive to the spirit, really. And so I talk about this a lot, but I really think this is how we need to look at our prospecting and our cultivation. So I want to draw a parallel from fundraising to personal evangelism. And everybody on this call understands personal evangelism. So think about this. Some people come to Christ when they hear the gospel for the very first time and they respond immediately because the Holy Spirit brought that moment of conviction. They pray. It's a transformed life. It's amazing. It's so exciting because the people talk about how they changed immediately. Most people, though, seem to come to faith. They've had years of witness. People have poured into them. They've shared Christ. They've invited them to the church, to a small group. It was a faithful neighbor. It was a patient coworker. It's a grandmother that prayed for decades, right? So the harvest is real, but the cultivation was a long process. And so I think major donor work is there's a lot of similarities because some donors are ready right now to give you. I just had one a minute ago. She watched the podcast and she sent $10,000. Whoa, that's a brand new donor. That's fantastic. But many donors are not ready and we can't rush the relationship. Our job is to be faithful and to tell the story. And so let me be kind of direct on that. You can ask for a gift, for an annual fund gift without a lot of cultivation, right? So you can ask somebody for $100. I might have it right now in my pocket. I'll give it to you. You can ask me for $1,000. I can move that around. Ask me for $10,000. I need to check with my wife and just to make sure that she's on the same page. Ask me for $100,000. Okay, well, I'm going to have to really think about that. So I mean, the point of this is that the larger the ask, the more cultivation that you really need to make. So when I think about cultivating a major seven-figure donor, you just can't walk right in that person's life and say, hey, I'm Ron, would you give me $1 million? Doesn't happen. People think, what? Who are you? And it doesn't even matter who I'm representing. It's just like, you got to build trust, build relationship, and that just takes time. And you just can't skip these steps because these are not transactional gifts. These are transformational gifts and they don't happen overnight. Just like evangelism doesn't necessarily happen overnight. It takes time. So Rich, you've shepherded countless donor relationships. What does great cultivation look like?
Yeah, well, first of all, hi, Ron. I'm Rich. Would you give me $500,000?
No.
No. And you know me well.
No, you know me well, and I'm not going to do that.
It takes time, doesn't it? So
talk to the right donor. You got to do more identification, my friend.
That's right. That's
okay.
Right. So, the beginning, the first phase of this really is the first 3 months. It's months 1 to months 3. And here's where you are. You're focusing on discovery. Got to learn more. This is your introduction. You're getting to know the donor as a person, and you should know about their family. How many kids do they have? That's really big. When are their birthdays? Those things are important. I had a gentleman that I met with, and it was an amazing conversation. And he recorded, and he didn't tell me this, but he recorded down all 5 of my kids and their birthdays and their names. And I saw this man a year later, and he told me he'd been praying for them for the entire year, named them by name. Hey, how's Claire been? How's Chloe been? So forth and so on. Wow. And that mattered so much to me. Wow. This is your chance to do that for your donors. And that's the first 3 months. And you're going to be doing a lot more listening here. So more listening than talking. Have your ears open, be attentive. And you know what? This isn't just a technique here. It's actually a spiritual posture.
Yeah, I just love that principle of listening.
Be a listener. And Matthew 10 cites it well. Don't worry beforehand about what you'll say or how you'll say it. The Spirit's going to give you the words. So be a good listener. And remember, this isn't just for missionaries, or this isn't just for pastors. This is for every advancement officer sitting across from a prospective donor. This is your work. And, we believe in biblical stewardship here. And so it's very important when you're cultivating a donor, pray with them. Pray with them. Ask the Lord what this person needs to hear today. In fact, pray before you get to the meeting. Sometimes God, through the Holy Spirit, will prompt you on what to say in that meeting and maybe even to share a powerful story. So sometimes you just have to listen. Trust the Lord that He's going to give the words that you need.
Yeah. No, I really love that principle. In fact, that's the number one principle of fundraising is listening. And sometimes we think the number one principle is telling our story and making sure we have our story right and telling our story well and making sure we have our story right. No, the number one strategy is listening. So I use the word wait, an acronym WAIT, WAIT. Why am I talking? And that helps you slow down and not just speed through your presentation and speed through to get to the ask. Listen. So, Rich, okay, so you got us month 1 to 3, and this is a journey here, and this is just outline. Everything is different in the real world. But tell me, if I'm working with this donor, brand new major donor, I get to months 3 to 6. What do I do now?
So just like you were saying before, thinking about the gospel message with it, this really is where, Paul had planted the seed. Now you're Apollos and you're watering it and you're waiting for God to give it growth. So this is the watering time. This is the taking time for growth, and you're moving into deeper engagement here. So you're inviting them to visit your campus or ministry. If you do a lunch and learn, this is the opportunity to bring them on board and have them get to know you in a deeper way. So you're going to connect them here with the beneficiaries of your work. You're going to share stories of impact with them that actually resonate with their values. Think of this again like the evangelist who doesn't just hand out a tract. They're inviting somebody to see the community. You want them to meet the people, feel the mission, all those important things. And so seeing the impact of your mission in people's lives is always more powerful than information. Remember, conversation, not presentation. And this is impact and being with them and not just flooding them with information. And so the next phase in this would be months 6 to 12. And here's where you're all about vision alignment. You have strategic conversations with your donors, and this is where you really want to tell them where the organization is headed. And remember, they're not ATMs. They're not walking ATMs here. They're not a walking wallet. They need to be able to have the opportunity to give you feedback about what you're doing. And here's the chance for you to get that. So this is really, Ron, this is a discipleship moment before a commitment is made. So you're letting them count the cost by asking them questions and giving them a snapshot into your vision. And then you're gonna really discover the joy for them to be a part of something that is amazing. They're gonna feel that joy. And so when the timing is right, eventually, somewhere between months 12 and 18, and again, I'll reiterate what you said, Ron. There are times when you can ask off the bat because the donor might say, "Hey, what do you need?" And
Right.
you be prepared to
Yeah.
answer that. But
Right.
oftentimes it takes a while. And
Yeah.
so for months 12 to 18, you're going to make the ask, and you don't want this to be a surprise. They need to already know this is coming. It's a natural next step, just kind of the same way a mature gospel conversation should not end with an awkward pitch. This should be a gentle, confident conversation. Something like this. Is there any reason why you wouldn't want to make a commitment today?
Hmm.
So this should come naturally, and it shouldn't be a gotcha moment for your
Yeah.
donor.
Right. Very good.
So the best cultivation, Ron, it looks like genuine friendship with a purpose. And so I always tell our clients, you should be adding value to this person's life, not just extracting value from them. They should be very close to you in some cases. You're putting your heart into this. And I'll tell you, I met with a major gift officer yesterday. Phenomenal. This is a person that's raising $1.5 million a year for her ministry. And she unfortunately lost one of her donors
Hmm.
the husband passed,
Yeah.
and it broke her up. She was full of
Sure.
tears because
Right.
she cares. And
Right.
so now she has a widow ministry. So she's spending time with the
Right.
wife, and so your donors should be close to you. They should be friends of you.
Yeah.
So not a cultivation strategy. This is the fruit of the spirit showing up in your work.
Well, I love that. And so fundraising is ministry. And so you need to approach this as I'm helping this person grow in the grace of giving, but I'm more concerned about them and their spiritual growth than I am my ministry, right? So I want this to be donor centric, donor focused. Here's the thing about listening to the Spirit. The Spirit knows that donor's heart better than you do, right? And so he knows what fears holding them back. He knows what loss they've experienced. He knows what dreams they've carried on for years. And so when you go into a donor visit and you're surrendered to the Spirit's leading, you often find yourself saying exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment. I've experienced that. I mean, sometimes I stumble on my words all the time, but then there's those moments where I say something profound. I was like, what just happened here? It was the Spirit speaking through me. And I didn't trip over my stuff because I'm listening to the Spirit. I'm trying to be the hands and feet and voice of Jesus.
Amen. Amen. And that happened because you listened. You listened and you let God speak through you. So, one of the most powerful cultivation tools, also, Ron, that I've ever personally seen would be a personalized impact report. In fundraising, generally, you would call that, proof of performance. And I talk about this often that we call it in faith-based fundraising testimonies of God's goodness. And so, sharing the impact with your donors is so important. And it doesn't have to be some big, large document, really, and it needs to be personalized for your donor. And if it is, it's going to make a difference. Not just showing them what the organization is doing with all of the funding, but with what their funding did. Whenever you can connect that person to what their gift did and had some sort of eternal consequence in particular, it's amazing. And so when a donor sees the tangible fruit of their giving, it'll deepen their emotional and spiritual connection to the mission. It's really the fundraising equivalent, as I said, to a testimony. It's showing someone the real world evidence of what God's doing through their obedience and giving. So, some donors, as we mentioned before, will act quickly and do treasure them, but most of the time, they don't. And don't lose heart here. Just be faithful in the small touches. Be sensitive to the Spirit's prompting about what to say and how to say it. Matthew 10, as you were talking before, Ron, and equally sensitive about when. Timing's important. Remember, fundraising is the right person making the right ask for the right project in the right way at the right time.
Yeah, that's great stuff. So I want to kind of move into the aspect of team fundraising because uh, it takes more than one person to. You mentioned the verse earlier. I love this verse. This is evangelism. Paul says, "I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase." Right. So it's like it's a team effort, and we're relying on the Holy Spirit to help us. Now, here's a caution I have. Sometimes, if you're really, really cultivation focused, sometimes you miss the point. You've been tending the relationship, but you're not the only one, right? If your donor is the parent of students or graduates, other people have poured into this relationship, right? It's not just you. You aren't the only one. A teacher, a coach, an administrator, somebody else has poured long before you've met them, long before you've sat down. So, I mean, if you're brand new to the organization, you've been here 2, 3 months, yeah, I want to develop a relationship, but I'm also saying that this donor's been around for 40 years and connected to the ministry. I'm relying on the relationship that donor has with the institution, with the ministry. And I'm just the current face. I'm just the current voice. And so you want to make sure that your cultivation isn't just one person, but it's multiple people in your ministry because you want to have lots of different touches, lots of different angles, I call that a greenhouse culture, where every faculty member, every administrator, every coach understands they're part of the cultivation team. And we're trying to live out this verse. I think this verse speaks a lot to fundraising. So I also want to talk about a trap that sometimes we run into is that we have a lot of well-meaning gift officers and they run into this perpetual cultivation, right? I'm still cultivating. I have one more visit, one more brochure, one more event, one more thing, and I never get to the ask. I affectionately call these gift officers professional visitors. Now, it's fun to go have tea and coffee with your elderly donors. They're great. They have great stories. It's fun, but there's a moment that you got to ask. And so the cultivation has to end at some point. Farmers don't keep cultivating their land forever and ever. They stop and they plant and then they harvest. They let it grow and then they harvest. But the point is, cultivation is fantastic. You can't skip it, but you can't keep cultivating forever because you'll just keep uprooting the seed. Okay, so we covered a lot of ground here, but let's keep going here. What about the CEO? Chad, help us understand how the executive director, the CEO, what's their role and how important is it?
Yeah, it's absolutely essential. Look, one of the questions that I noticed in the chat was, unrealistic expectations from leadership. And when we think about the team, your CEO, founder, leader, he's the guy that should be in front of the seven-figure gift. This is who people with that kind of capacity really want to have a relationship with the president or the CEO. They must be involved in the relationship. You need to bring them into the relationship. Sometimes you have the reluctant leader that wants to leave development just to the fundraising guys. So donors, again, at that level, they want to know the leader. They want to look them in the eye. They want to hear from them firsthand. They want to sense that they're competent and passionate about the mission. The advancement team can manage the process for sure, but the president needs to be the face of the relationship at key moments. The campus visit, the dinner, the ask itself. I'd also add that the president's time is limited, so you have to be strategic. You want to make sure that you hold him as special in the relationship. Hey, I'm not sure. I know that he would want to talk to you. I know time and space may not allow it, but let me see if I can get the president on the phone with us here today. So identify your top 10 to 15 major gift prospects and build the presidential engagement calendar. You might have to do this for him and then help to manage his time.
Yeah.
So protect that time. It's the highest ROI activity your president can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dave's got a great question. How do we coordinate multiple people contacting the same person or the same couple? You know what? I have the same issue right now. I'm working with the ministry. The president's met her. I met her at an event. Two other people of my staff just met her and they all had great conversations. And we're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. How do we coordinate this? And I think it's maybe we have to have great communication with the team so the right hand knows what the left hand is doing, right? And so we need to make sure that we bring this donor along at the right pace at the right time and the right person asks. And in this case, it may be the president, it may be me, don't know, but we'll just wait and see. But we have to communicate clearly because we don't want to confuse our donors. So that's a great question, and people run into that question all the time. So Chad, any other final thoughts about cultivation?
Yeah, just is never underestimate the power of a handwritten note. It is gold. In a world of emails, text messages, a handwritten personal note really stands out. I've had donors tell me later on that they've held on to a note that a president wrote for years later.
Right.
It communicates that really those people that you're not just asking for money, that they matter to you.
Right.
I mean, hopefully through this process, as we're gathering information about who these donors are, I often say, how can I be praying for you? And then they tell you what you might ask awkwardly or want to know awkwardly in another situation. So look, it's not just your money that I'm after. And the distinction when you write a note is everything in major gift work.
Yeah. I have one right now. I got to get to the president and say, hey, this person just gave $10,000. here's the story. You can write the note, and he's great at that. And so you guys make if you're not the executive director and you're trying to help your executive director connect, tee them up, give them all the information, help them write these thank you notes. And this is great. All right, let's do one more poll here. What's the biggest challenge your organization faces in major gift work? So here are your choices. We can't identify qualified prospects. We struggle with consistent cultivation. We're afraid to make the big ask. We lack presidential or CEO engagement. So what would you think if you had a quick minute or two, second or two, to analyze your situation? How do you think you would respond? All right. Good job. All right. So let's see what the answers are. And voila. Survey says we can't identify qualified prospects. We struggle with consistent cultivation. That's true. I mean, that's true with all of us. It's just like you have so many people on your list. It's like, well, I'm working on this guy, but I forgot about this guy. I got to go chase this one. It's like you've got multiple things to do. And again, I think it gets back to asking the Spirit to make the most of every opportunity. Like it says in Ephesians, Lord, help me make the most of every opportunity today. And so appreciate your honesty here. I think that's great. All right, we got to keep going here. So when we think about the close, I got to get to the close because, again, I said cultivate, 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 but you got to get to the ask. So, Rich, you've identified the prospect. You've invested months in cultivation. Now's the time for the ask. What are you going to do?
It's go time here. Here's where it all comes together. So again, you've identified the prospect, you've invested time in cultivating, and now it's time for the actual ask itself. So I'm going to share 5 quick principles for closing a 7-figure gift. So principle number 1, this should not be your gotcha moment. The ask should never be a surprise. If you've cultivated the relationship well, the donor actually should be expecting the ask to come. So some of the best solicitations happen when the donor says, so are you going to ask me? When are you going to ask me? So they know it's coming, and that's a good thing. Principle 2, ask for a specific amount. You know, we say at the Timothy Group, vague asks produce vague gifts. And so I like to ask for a specific amount. And don't worry, you're most likely you're not going to offend your donor. Do your homework and ask for something specific because you take the math away from them. It doesn't make it so difficult for them. You got to know their capacity. You got to know what they've given before or if they've given elsewhere. But ask for something specific. So you don't want them to give you vague answers. So you want to ask for specific gifts. Principle 3, make it personal and make it about the impact. The donor needs to see themselves in the gift. This isn't about filling your budget gap here, okay? It's about inviting them to be a part of a legacy. It's something that will outlast all of us. Then the 4th one, ask face to face whenever possible, across from them. You don't want to do this in an email. I'm telling you, 7-figure gifts are not closed that way. And they're really not closed on a phone call either. Sometimes, if you can't meet with them in person and you had to do that, I would always do it face to face. A meal in their home, a private meeting in their office, even a walk through campus where a building might be standing someday, where you're giving them vision and you can make an ask there. Make sure you're doing it in person. Principle 5, be comfortable with silence. We've said this before. You need to be a good listener here. So ask them and then be quiet. Just stop right there. Let the silence do its work. Let them have time to pause and ponder about what you've asked.
Yeah. No, that's good. All right. Well, walk us through that moment, that solicitation. Okay, you've done all this. Now I'm actually having this meeting. What does that meeting look like?
All right, so the best solicitation meeting I've ever been a part of really started with about 45 minutes of conversation. It was warm conversation. I was with the president of a university. I was the VP of advancement at that time, and I watched the president talk about the donor's grandkids, shared a meal with the donor, just spent some real time there. And then the president looked at the couple and said, I've been thinking about how your family's legacy could be woven into the future of this institution. And so he laid out a specific vision, he named a specific amount, and guess what he did? He was quiet. And then the donor looked at his wife, she looked at him and said this, let's do it. And those were the greatest words we could have heard in that moment. So that moment didn't just happen there in that minute, though. It was years in the making. It happened because every step of cultivation had been intentional and purposeful.
What a great moment. Let's do it. Okay, but let's be real. There are times they say no. What do they say no, Chad? What do you do if they say nah, not interested?
You do the Tommy boy. Okay, thank you for your time. No, no is rarely a permanent answer. Look, a lot of times it means I need more information. No, not right now. Maybe the timing isn't right. So one of the worst things you can do is just go away and retreat. Instead, and again, you've been cultivating this relationship. You can ask follow-up questions. Hey, can you help me understand what's giving you pause here? Or often the donor will tell you exactly what they need to get to a yes. This is how we're listening. We talked about customized proposals and we make those proposals. So, maybe it's a different payment structure. Maybe you can get creative in your ask. Hey, would you consider giving $1 million? We'd love to have you do that over 5 years. Or we'd love to have you do that over 3 years. Is that something that you could consider? Now you have a pledge. So maybe they want to see more pieces of the plan. Maybe they need another conversation with the CEO, with the president. Your job is to keep the door open, keep the conversation going.
Yeah. No, I think that's really great. So, Chad, any more thoughts here about that solicitation process from you?
So a couple of things. One, at this level, you want a personalized proposal, a written proposal that's specific to them. It's polished. It's a document that the donor can take home, review, pray with his wife over. It shows that you've taken them very seriously. And this is again going back to some of the cultivation pieces. You've been praying for them. You've heard their prayer requests. You know their daughter, their granddaughter. So you can personalize this proposal even with their favorite scripture. So second, always express real gratitude, regardless of the outcome. We're so thankful for your time. We're so thankful that you've considered this, whether they say yes or no. I mean,
Sure.
you thank them for their partnership. The relationship doesn't have to end at the ask. It can deepen.
Yeah. No, that's great. And all these things about relationship is so vital. And so relationship always comes first. It always does. Okay, we got some time for question and answers. So we got a few in here already. Thank you so much. If you have another one you want to throw in the question and answer box, please do that, and we'll get to them as we can. So Marley says, hey, we all probably agree that cultivation takes time. How do you manage unrealistic expectations from leadership, especially when giving is down and they're looking for big gifts? At times, there's a thought that X number of phone calls and X number of visits will mean you will get a large gift as a result. What's the best message we can share with leadership without seeming to be making excuses? Oh, Marley, you have been in fundraising for a long time to know how this works. Hey, Rich, help us with that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That is. I go back to scripture on this one, and I'm not suggesting you cite scripture to your boss, but maybe. In Exodus 23, when God commanded Moses to raise money and build a tabernacle, he said, "Go out and raise gifts of gold, silver, and bronze from those whose hearts are prompted to give." So God is part of this equation too. And so, as much as we want to be the salesperson here, really, we're the marketing person, and we're
Yeah,
relying on the Holy Spirit to do a work in that person's heart. And sometimes they're not ready to give. You got to do your part. You got to go make the calls. You got to meet with your donors, but you can't force them to give. You just
yeah.
can't. It's not transactional, it's transformational.
I think the point here too is that there's the thought that X number of phone calls and X number of visits means that you get the large gifts. Well, you do have to make X number of phone calls and you do have to make X number of gifts.
Yeah.
So we've got our part in this, right? So we got to get out there and do it. But there's always the tension of, do I ask now or do they need more time? And the tension of the pressure of the budget. Uh, do I ask? I mean, so it's a dance that you're just trying to move forward at the right pace in the right direction. So good stuff. Okay, Paul says, hey, when your organization gets enthusiastic about an idea from a board member or campaign chair, such as making a list or calling everybody on it, regardless of the connection, how do you temper their enthusiasm for the correct process of making connections, sacrificing stewardship for expediency? Chad, how would you answer that question?
Me?
Yeah.
You caught me by surprise.
Well,
Uh,
you saw the
well,
question.
I did see the question. I was still thinking about the situation that I was in with past relationships where the people above me, they just weren't compassionate about. They wanted results and they wanted them now, and it's just not that scientific, man. Anyway, when they get enthusiastic about an idea, I don't know. I'm gonna slough this off to Rich.
Great. So, how do you temper their enthusiasm with the correct process of making connections? Yeah, you can get this, you can get this wrong. You can get it wrong quickly. And so I think you always say thank you. You always say thank you. You don't want to patronize them. Ask them to make a connection for you too. That's always helpful. So if they know somebody, use them in the right way. Get the board member to open a door. I think that's always fantastic. And so you don't want to sacrifice stewardship for expediency. You've said it well in the question, and I agree with that. Uh, Again, fundraising is making the right ask the right way in the right time and all of that. So you want to do it right, but you also don't want to sit on your hands either. And
Yeah.
so I think having a plan, that's what we talk about all the time. We call it an individual plan of care. And so I think I would show a board member, here's what we have plotted and planned out for this particular donor. Give me some feedback. Do you think that's right? Do you know this donor? So getting the board member back involved in certain ways can be helpful.
Yeah. No, I like that. I think that's a really great way to approach that. Okay, we have time for just one more question. All right. How do you determine the right ask amount? And so, Chad, I'm going to come back to you on that one. How do
Okay,
you
good.
determine the right ask?
Well, again, you've done your homework, so you've done your research, you've been in relationship, and it's really a combination of those two. We like to use well screening data to understand capacity. Sometimes you're under asking. We study giving history. Um, we factor in what we've learned through personal conversations. We've maybe sort of litmus tested it a little bit. And I never want to ask in a way that offends the donor, but I certainly don't want to leave money on the table either when they're ready for a much larger ask. So it should stretch the donor, but not offend them. And it should stretch you a little bit too. So aim high enough to honor their capacity, but grounded enough in your cultivation conversation so that it feels right. We talk about prayer. So praying about it and moving in for the ask.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. Um, well, hey, I appreciate you guys. You've responded well to this, and it's fun, and it's not a script. It's more of an interactive. Let's talk about this. So we've covered a lot of ground today. So, Rich, leave us with three action steps as we that everybody can implement this week.
Glad to, Ron. But before I do that, we've got to start a game show around here. It's called
I love
Stump
it.
the Consultant. Stump the Consultant.
Dump the
And so
consultant.
that's right.
Easily done.
It's
Easily
easily
done.
Yeah,
done.
right.
All right. So action step number one, review your top 25 donors, run a well screening on them. Identify at least three individuals who may have the capacity beyond what they've been giving. We want to grow that relationship. We want to grow their giving. Action step two, schedule one face-to-face meeting with a high capacity donor within the next 30 days. Just do it. This isn't an ask for money, but to listen. You want to learn more about them and deepen the relationship. This is watering that seed right now. We're not ready to ask. Do this one. Action step three, develop a personalized cultivation plan. I mentioned an IPOC, an individual plan of care. Ron, we're going to do a webinar on that in the future where we talk
Yeah,
about what that looks like. So
yeah,
in this, you want to plan this for your top five major gift prospects. Map out what the next 12 months of interaction and intentional touches look like, whether that's visits or calls, notes, events, or if you're going to send them an impact report. So we want to plan our work here, plot it out.
That's great. That's really great. Um, I I think we got to wrap things up. It's getting lunch is about over, everybody, so they got to get back to work. So we can't be messing around here too much longer. Um, but I love those closing thoughts. So here's our thought. As we close the webinar, we're going to send you the slide deck. You're going to eventually get the webinar on a YouTube, so you can go back and watch this again and again and again, because I know you love it so much, you're going to watch it multiple times. But there's a 5-question survey that we're going to ask you to take out. And if you complete our survey, we're going to give you a free gift. It's called Major Gift Mastery Resource Guide, and it's going to help you with some ideas to fine tune your approach to major donor work. So here's the idea too, is we have at the Timothy Group, we'd love to answer your questions. So you have hello@timothygroup.com. If you have more questions that we didn't get to, we'd love to offer actually a 30-minute consultation to discuss your specific situation and to try to give you some counsel and guidance in the next step. Visit our website. You can see all sorts of stuff. We've got a lot of resources on our website that's free, that just accessible to you. We have one more thing that's really exciting for us. In April 16th, 17th, we are hosting a development training seminar in Grand Rapids. And so it's 2 days, and we're going to be talking about all sorts of development strategies, giving you workshops, going to visit ministries here in Grand Rapids who are effective in their fundraising strategies. We got a few seats available. We would love to have you come to Grand Rapids and join us. You can look at our website. You can see the registration and the cost and the details. And we'd love to invite you to come. It would be a blessing to meet you in person and just encourage you. I know even a lot of people on our website today, webinar today, have been to Grand Rapids to our seminar. And so thanks for joining us again for the webinar. But for you who haven't come to Grand Rapids, we want to have you join us. So that was fun today. Thanks a lot, guys.
Hey, Ron, I got one other thought. If it just, you said it so fast, I just want to highlight that. Listen, take advantage of a free 30-minute consult. We'd love to talk and pray with you about this. We're in this together. So giving us the opportunity to walk alongside you would just be brilliant for us as well. So thanks so much. Thanks for your time.
No, I love that. I think that's great. Thank you so much, Chad. And again, we want to be available to you. Thanks, Rich and Chad. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. Thanks for fun. Thanks for just going with the flow here. And thanks to our webinar participants. You spent an hour. I hope you didn't waste it, but I hope you spent it well. We're so excited about that. And thanks a lot. And we'll see you next month.
Bye, guys.